got to get that off the screen. How's everyone doing out there? One of the bad things about YouTube is that you never know what's going to show up afterwards. So great to have you out there on my live show. And my name is Rick Newberry, and so grateful for the opportunity to be here with you all this afternoon, this morning, depending upon when you are dialing in or tuning in on Facebook or YouTube. So just as I've done in my other shows, if you are interested in sharing where you're from, what school you're with, I would love to just hear that and see that in your comment section. If you could share the name of your school, that would be awesome. And I would love to just see who's tuning in live to the live show today. We always have a great audience out there, and looking forward to another great show today. It's hard to believe that it's August, isn't it? I mean, it's August 13th today. And I've been working with a number of schools that have already started. And so I've been hearing good reports about how things are going with those schools, and really excited about the start of the school year. I've got several schools that are reporting that their applications and enrollment has just surged here in the end. And so as the schools have been able to pivot and offer options within their schools, it's been really exciting to see just the number of families and students who have chosen their school. So, if we could have predicted anything like COVID-19, certainly we would have had specific plans in place for what we could have done. But it's been exciting to see how schools have been able to pivot and adjust and be able to alter their plans for a new school year. And so hopefully, as you're getting ready to start school out there, you'll be excited to welcome your students back in whatever capacity that'll be along the way. So again, if you're joining in, tell us where you're from. We would love to see and know who is in our audience today. And so Melinda's here from Northwest Christian School. And thank you for tuning in. And I appreciate you watching my shows. And yesterday I just did a webinar with Facts, and that was on the subject and topic of word of mouth marketing. It's one of my favorite subjects to be able to talk about. And so it's exciting that, Melinda, you're joining in to be a part of the show today. So we have a great lineup ahead of us, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics along the way, and that's the whole topic and subject of storytelling. So if you've heard me talk or speak at a conference before, I often share about storytelling, because I think it's really powerful to really think about how you can tell your school story out there. And so that's going to be the focus of our conversation today. And so we have a great lineup that I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment here. We're going to be able to talk about how story impacts school marketing and admissions. And so great topic ahead of us. But I want to lay the foundation for us. One of the things that I have recently put together is a brand new ebook. And this is an ebook on 9 drivers of word of mouth. So I believe in word of mouth. I believe it's the primary way that a prospective parent hears about a school. And so it's a great opportunity to be able to consider the 9 drivers of word of mouth. And actually number 8 that I talk about within my ebook is stories. And stories are a key driver for word of mouth, because that's honestly what people talk about. And this is my favorite marketing quote out there: stories are part of who we are. After all, you don't tell slogans about your grandfather or how your parents met or even how you were treated in a restaurant. So we put all the time and energy along the way into slogans and fancy marketing campaigns, but I believe it comes down to being able to share stories, because that's the real part of who we are. And here's another great quote: that your number one job is to tell your story. And so as you look at what you're doing at your school, in your school's marketing effort, it's to focus in on being able to share your story. So we have 3 special guests with us today, and I would like to introduce them. But first, I want to say hello to Janice out there from Peachtree Academy in Georgia, and also Emily from St. Joseph Rice Lake in Wisconsin. So great to have you here, and would love to hear from others who are joining in online today. But I want to introduce our first guest and bring Emily Cretella on the screen. Hey, Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. Now, Emily, you're the founder of Cursive Content.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Tell us about Cursive Content.
Yeah, so I work with independent schools, colleges, and universities to help them create and share stories that their dream families will love.
Mm.
So, really, what I do starts with story and then bridges out from there, to helping schools try to figure out what their core story is and how to really connect with their dream families, and then how to tell that story to their families.
Awesome. Now, what's your
Yeah.
background? Like, how did you get started in telling stories and being
Yeah.
involved in this area?
So I think I've been thinking of myself as a storyteller since I was a kid. I always have been writing on the side. I always have a novel in the works still to this day. But professionally, I came from the advertising and marketing world. I was the director of strategy at an advertising agency for many, many years. Before that, I started as a copywriter. So I had both of the kind of the storytelling, copywriting side, as well as the strategy side. And when I started Cursive, it's been about 8 years now. Kind of melded the two together and figured out that schools were my favorite clients out of the bunch, and decided to just help schools tell their stories, because on the surface it can seem like there aren't enough stories to differentiate schools, but I haven't run into that yet. Every school has such a unique story, and it's so fun to kind of pull them out and pull them together and help share them to the world.
Yeah, well, we have a common passion because I love
Yeah.
working with schools. They're
Mhm.
great clients, and so it's wonderful that you can come alongside of them and be able to help them with their storytelling
Mhm.
efforts. And our two other guests on the show today are actually two school clients that you've worked with.
Yes.
And so let's bring Cheryl onto the show. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody.
Now, Cheryl, you are the Director of Communications, Marketing, and Technology with Sanford School. That's quite a title.
It is. It's a unique title. I hear that a lot. Not many people seem to have those dual roles, but I do, and I have to say I love it.
That's awesome. Now, how long have you been at your school?
I've been with Sanford for 15 years. The original position I had was Director of Communications, which expanded a little bit later on into Communications and Marketing. And then I acquired the technology piece of that through a reorganization in 2014.
Very good. Well, it's kind of, positive in the sense that you're able to deal with technology, because sometimes there can be, a turf issues as you're dealing with like website structure and all of that. So being able to control and manage all that area within your school is a good thing.
It
And
is.
yeah, and you were just mentioning that your school is using the swivel technology.
Yes, we will be using swivel technology for the 2020-21 school year. It's very exciting.
That's great. Well, great to have you here, Cheryl. And we have one more guest to add to the live show, and that's Alex Brosowsky. And so great to have you, Alex. And you're from the Quaker School at Horsham, which
Yeah.
is in the Philadelphia area.
That's right. Thank you very much for having me on here. Hello.
Yeah. And you're the head of school. So how long have you been in that role?
This is my 6th year as the head of school at the Quaker School at Horsham.
Okay, awesome. Tell us a little bit about the Quaker School.
So we're a small school. We're 75 kids. Geographically, I think about 15 miles north of Philadelphia. For those who know the roads in Philadelphia, that means we're about an hour and a half north of Philly. We're on a beautiful 5-acre campus. The school was founded in '82 to be a place for children whose gifts weren't appreciated elsewhere. And we really solidified that in our mission 5 years ago when we missioned to be a school for children with complex challenges. And we really love our population, very specialized group, and wonderful ratios. I mean, we're 75 kids and 50 teachers. So quite an intense experience for everybody there, and just a wonderful place to lead a community.
That's great. I think you were saying before we began the live stream is that your enrollment's been full for 5 years.
Yes, yeah. This is going to be our 5th year. A lot of I said I've got to give credit to Emily. She helped us out a lot in telling our story and what we do for kids and how our students thrive. The school, when I took over, was terribly under enrolled. We were at 46 kids with a 75 student capacity, but we are going to be in the mid-70s again for the 5th year.
That is great. Wonderful. Well, congratulations. And Emily, I would just like to hear a little bit from you about how you worked with these two schools to be able to help them in their storytelling effort.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and what I thought it would be a good conversation is because they both have embraced storytelling so fully, but they do it in such different ways because their dream families are so different and their student population is so different. So I think when I started working with the Quaker school, we were really focused on their dream families and, who they best serve. And I think that probably the same with Sanford as well. It's understanding, exactly what the audience's wants and needs and challenges are, and starting there when you're telling your story, because then you can craft what you do around what they're looking for and use the specific challenges, the specific words that they would use to describe themselves in the storytelling to bridge that connection. So especially for the Quaker school, we really wanted to think about parents and some of the struggles they were having and the challenges that they were having and the challenges that their children were having and what their worries were for their kids and what kind of education they were going to get. And we started there and we really talked to them through storytelling in a connected human to human way. So it felt like we were creating that bond rather than just telling what the Quaker school was all about.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's dive in because we have a great set of questions that we want to focus in on. And I want to begin with just getting an understanding from your perspective, what is storytelling? And so, Emily, you wanted me to display a slide on the screen. And so I want you to actually tackle this question first.
Yeah, I will. And so this is just the definition of story. And whenever I start working with a new client, I bring this up right away because I think it kind of grounds the conversation when we're talking about storytelling. And it's very simple. Story is a narrative, either true or fictitious, in prose or verse, designed to interest, amuse, or instruct the hearer or reader. It's a tale. And why I like this definition so much is because you can see here that it's all about the hearer or the reader. It's not about the teller or the writer. When you're thinking about telling your story, you have to think about it in a sense of interesting, amusing, or instructing your audience, your dream families. And so it kind of ties back to what I was just talking about is you have to know your dream families very well in order to tell a story that's going to connect with them.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put that. I'm interested, Cheryl and Alex, for you all to comment from your perspective. What is storytelling for you all, at your schools? How would you even define it and what you're trying to accomplish in your two schools?
Well, I think as head of school, I'm the school's chief storyteller. I think I often refer to myself that way. And you can even think about it, last night we had our reopening meeting where we revealed via Zoom, of course, but we revealed our reopening plans to our families. So both all the health and safety procedures for being in the building, as well as how learning is going to be facilitated for kids who can't make it to school. And yes, was I telling people about what direction we're going to walk in the hallway and where the hand sanitizer is and how and how you do drop off and pick up and all of that? Of course I was. But what I was really doing is telling people the story of how their children were going to be safe when they came to school in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an important story here at the beginning of the school year. Anything you want to add from your perspective, Cheryl?
I think for us, what we discovered was as we were trying to do our marketing and admissions and promotional pieces, it really comes down to the who you are, not the what you do. And being able to talk about the benefits and connecting them to the outcomes as opposed to the features of the school was key. And when you think about schools like ours, if you're looking at independent schools, I think most independent schools have small class sizes. They have nice campuses. Your kids are going to be safe. We have great teachers. If we're all saying that, what really makes Sanford special? And I think trying to drill down into that was so important for us to do because, of course, when you ask, well, who's your dream families? It really forced us to think, well, who are the families that we would like to attract? And what is it that we do that makes the investment in our school, which is a significant investment, worth it? And so going back to learning about our personality, understanding why we would be a good match for your family, I think you can only do that through story. You can't really do that through sharing the same attributes that so many other schools in your market and even outside your market already have.
Yeah, such a good point. I like how you're referring to dream families, you know, and thinking about who are we trying to attract to our schools, and then being able to create stories that'll be able to reach them along the way. Such an important aspect. And I'd like for you all to maybe expand upon that a little bit and think about school leaders. You know, why is storytelling so important for school leaders to make sure it's part of your, you know, marketing, admissions, and just overall strategy in your schools? Maybe Emily, you can start with tackling that one, because you work with a number of schools and you coach them on storytelling and why it's important.
Yeah, and I think I liked Alex's wording of chief storytelling officer, because it really does come from like the top down. You have to have someone who really is passionate about the school story, believes in it, and can speak to your dream families in a way that is authentic. And so if you have a leader that's able to do that, and you have a story that's streamlined and straightforward enough for everyone else to understand, that's kind of like leading by example. You know, the school leaders are the ones who come out and put the story forth, and then everyone else in the school can follow suit. And so they kind of set the example of how you're going to talk to your families and how you're going to present the school.
Yeah, exactly. Anything you want to add, Alex or Cheryl, at this point about the importance of leaders grasping storytelling as part of their strategy?
Now, if you look at what leadership is, it's, you know, creating direction, alignment, and commitment in other people towards the mission of the institution. And what better way to do that than to capture the stories of the institution? And look, we run schools, right? So these are great stories. These are kids who are growing and achieving and learning, and parents who are seeing their kids thrive. What better stories can we tell? And so, you know, we tell the stories to get that direction, alignment, and commitment, and to lead our communities.
And to that point about top down, one of the things that we noticed after we were able to crystallize our story and have it shared from our head of school and from many others is it made everybody within our community a better marketing ambassador. So often we would hear parents say, you know, I really want to tell my friends about the school, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to say. Certainly, most people can share their own students' stories, but to actually, or their own children's stories, but to actually share what the school story was, it was really hard to wrap our arms around that and to be able to give them some talking points that they were comfortable with. But once we had our act together, it became much, much easier.
Yeah, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about the process that you all went through to fine tune your stories, or to come up with those dream family stories within your schools. Just give us some insight of maybe, Emily, how you worked with Alex and Cheryl to be able to help them develop those stories.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take Sanford this time as an example. I went down to campus and spent some time there, really understanding what the school was about, was able to talk to students in all different grades, and as well as faculty and leadership. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to just immerse myself in the school culture. And then it was my job to kind of take everything that they were saying about themselves, everything in their marketing materials, on their website, in person, and distill it down. So on that visit, I learned a lot of the benefits of the school. And like Cheryl was just saying, it's connecting those benefits to outcomes. So what they're actually doing in the school, what is that bridge that's going to make the connection for parents of what their student is going to leave with, what they can expect to happen, regardless of if their student enters in kindergarten at Sanford School or in, 8th grade, 9th grade. So what is that common story that this is what a Sanford school student leaves with. And so that's really where we started, and we created 3 pillars for them. And so it was all about, at Sanford School, all students can be yourself, express yourself, and challenge yourself. And that really leads to finding yourself. So if you go to their website, it's, find yourself at Sanford. And that really is what all the students were able to do. And so it's almost simplifying the story. There's so many different aspects involved. You have to come up with a hierarchy. What I always tell my clients when I start is that if I had like a handful of pencils and if I threw them all at you, maybe you'd only catch 1 or 2, and you would definitely not catch them all. And so if we had all these stories and all these benefits, and we just put them out there and threw them at you, you're not going to take them all away. You're not going to remember them as a family who's searching for a school. So what we try to do is create that hierarchy, create that messaging that is easy to remember and connect with, and then build the stories behind it.
Yeah, that's excellent. In fact, I love doing the Sanford School website. As we were talking about before we went on the air with the live show, Cheryl was mentioning how she would like to be able to display the Sanford website. So I think I want to pull that up now. Yeah. And perhaps, Cheryl, you can share a little bit about how you've actually implemented some storytelling strategies at Sanford.
Well, we took our story that Emily created, and it was, if I can go back to just to augment the discussion about the process, which was a phenomenal process. It was interesting in so much as there were not only the face-to-face conversations that Emily had with people, but she also conducted surveys and was able to get additional feedback from our alumni population, which I think was certainly helpful in developing the story, because those are the people who had actually gone through and lived the full program in many cases for 12 or 13 years. So I just wanted to throw that piece in there. But what we've done is, and Emily was instrumental in helping us even create our new homepage. We're a school who kind of got into the whole state-of-the-art website game a little bit later than perhaps some other schools. So we came with our new site in 2012, redesigned it in 2016. And what you're seeing here is sort of the look that we created in 2018, which is based on the story that was developed for us. So this messaging that you see, the find yourself, the approach learning in life with no limitations, be yourself, express yourself, challenge yourself. You'll see that we have, near where the cursor is, content cards. And if you click those, it goes to different aspects of the site and to different stories and examples of how we do some of those things. In this section here, where you see the photo with the blue background, we have testimonials from different members of our community. There you see one of our trustees who is also a Sanford parent. We do a lot of storytelling with the people who work at Sanford. One of the things that we tried once we developed our story was making sure that we talked about how happy people were to work there and the why they're so happy to work there. Coming down a little bit further, and why they're happy is because they love the kids, they love the environment, they love how we do what we do. And then we have student profiles here demonstrating how our students live our motto, which is no talent lies latent. And we try to showcase again how they be themselves, express themselves, and challenge themselves. This is not the best day to be showing our Explore Our Campus section, because a big part of our story is how we use our campus. And we do have a Google tour, but there were some problems with Google right now, so we don't have that interactive piece there. Hopefully it'll be back. And I'm a strong believer that strong stories don't necessarily need numerical data, but there are a lot of people out there who like the infographics and want to know what some of the stats are. So here's our at a glance, our infographic section that'll tell you how much we award in financial aid, how many acres our campus is, how much money in scholarships students got at the most recent graduating class. And then if you come down a little bit further, a big part of your story is what's happening now. And so what our students and our alums and our teachers are doing. So this is a compilation of news stories, the news stories that post to the website. And I will say that as anyone is writing a story for us, whether it's for the website, for the magazine, or for another piece of communication, we make sure that they understand you need to incorporate elements of our story. What is our story? It's not just about the facts and figures. This is not just, an information piece. We're really wanting to make sure that we incorporate story wherever we go. So beyond the news section, we also have, this is hashtag my Sanford self. We have run contests. We've done different promotional components to try to get students and alums to tell us about their best Sanford self and share stories about how Sanford has played an instrumental role in who they are developing into and into the lives that they are living beyond Sanford. When you go a little bit further, and while it's a little bit less story, it's still a message that's important, because somebody who's never been to Sanford might not even know what grades we offer. So we offer divisional links there to say, okay, our lower school goes preschool to 4, our middle school goes 5th grade to 8th grade, and our upper school or our high school goes from grades 9 to 12. So there's a lot of content packed in that homepage, but we think that it's great content. And one of the things that our admission team shared recently was that, particularly in this pandemic environment in which we find ourselves, where so much of the information and messaging is being communicated online or digitally, they're getting great feedback about our site and the information that's there. And, when we talk about what story is as opposed to features, one of the things that I'm hearing is that people really feel like they know us before they even get to the door or pick up the phone. And I think that's huge. So,
yeah, I mean, just in that homepage of the website, there's so much packed in there, but it's interesting and it keeps you moving forward. And I love the focus about storytelling, because, to be able to showcase what you're doing and how you're doing it with compelling messages and, examples from people. I mean, that's exactly where it needs to be in your marketing effort. So who designed your website?
Blackbaud. We're a Blackbaud school.
Okay.
In terms of helping us come up with the content strategy and the layout, Emily helped us with that. But Blackbaud did the overall, CMS.
That's great. So really a nice team approach, working on that. And too often I find that school leaders just focus in on, having a pretty website, but there's so much more that goes into it than just, how it looks aesthetically. It's got to flow. It has to bring the school to life. There has to be the right messaging along the way.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's hard for people oftentimes is we need to tell everybody everything. So when we first, I think I was telling you, we kind of got into this game in 2012 in more of what I considered a true state-of-the-art way. The content that was coming at us to put this on the site and put that on the site and put something else on the site, it was just way too much. So from 2012 to 16, we reduced some of our content, but the message became more powerful. And I would say from 2016 to 2018 and to the present, we're getting better at really sharpening our message. So while there may be less content on there, I think that the content resonates well with our audiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely. I was having a little trouble. I wanted to try to pull up Alex's website, but I was having issues with my additional screen over here. So maybe, one of the joys of live shows is you never know what's going to happen with technology along the way. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll figure that out. But Alex, it'd be great if you could share maybe some ways that you're creatively implementing storytelling at your school.
Yes, absolutely. So the website has also been a key part of that strategy in telling the story of the school. What the website has also helped us do is a lot of our storytelling has been done through our blogs, and that was really done, and they're actually on the homepage of the website. And what we've done is we did with Emily, she let us do a lot of research on what blogs were available for parents of kids with special needs. And we found that if you needed really rational information, there was good places for that. You had websites like Understood and university websites. And if you had, learning disabilities, you have like Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity. These wonderful LD online, these wonderful web-based resources for rational information. But if you were the parent of a kid and you wanted to know, well, I keep trying to bring my kid to birthday parties and they're having meltdowns, how do I deal with that? And how do I take my kid to the beach? And how do I just have fun in a normal normal, but enjoy childhood with my children who have special needs. There really wasn't anything. So we just positioned our blog and started telling people those stories and really giving pointed, 300 to 500 word blogs on how people can enjoy the simple joys of childhood with their children with special needs. And the blogs had tremendous traction. And again, then it's featured at the bottom of the site. And then throughout the site, it also, here are the key, if you sort of pause where you just were, we had our key values, and you can zoom in and out on these really quickly. So you had your child can succeed in school, your child will make friends here, your child will feel safe and loved. So we took our value propositions, we just put them out front and center, and then you can click on each of those and they'll bring you to more information really quickly, and then you can pop right back out to the homepage quickly. So it really letting people zoom in and out as they want more information or less. And then we also found one of our most visited, people want to know who's going to be taking care of their kids. So using Google Analytics, the most visited page on our website consistently is our faculty page. So we just decided to bring that out to the homepage and make it available to folks.
Yeah, I love that feature, because they're the stars of your school. And so we need to showcase them and tell their story.
Yes, and I think the next step in that is we're going to be looking, I know I have just a wonderful development director who runs our website, and she's really been thinking about, we're going to have Emily's helping us as well, like what is a truly first-class faculty website, not website, but sort of, L2 look like, and we're going to really dig into that because again, it's our most visited page. So how do we really turn a faculty page into a landing page is going to be our experiment for this coming year, and I'm looking forward to working on it. And then as you go down, you can see those blogs. So again, that's also a link to our podcast, the What is the School Avoidance, and a blog as well. How to help your teens with homework, some self-care tips, how to find the right school. I mean, there's probably about 50 of them at this point, but we really bring them front and center to the blog.
Yeah, that's great. And Alex, are you writing all the blog posts, or is someone else involved?
With Emily's help, but yes.
he actually is a great example of a leader who is kind of positioning himself, and rightly so, as a trusted resource and expert in this area of children with complex challenges, because while I help pull the stories together, he comes up with the bulleted ideas and like the meat behind the posts, and he has the advice from working in the building. And that's one of the things that's looking at how you can harness the expertise and the unique perspective of the people working in your school, and how you can turn that into content that will really connect with your audiences.
Yeah, and to show the impact of this sort of storytelling and thought leadership work, I mean, we have families who, every year at this point, we have families who move to the Delaware Valley to enroll their children at Quaker school. So we've had families move from California, Minnesota, New Jersey, and so they're reading this content and it's really helping them. And then they'll get in touch with us and just be like, well, could we come? And be like, well, we're not in Minnesota, so have some things to work through. But absolutely, and like I said, every year that's become a reliable part of our enrollment stream.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I know that blogging can be a scary strategy for school leaders to consider. And I know, Emily, you write a lot about blogging and how that can be an effective way to, use that component of your online strategy to be able to share your message. Are there other ways that you see or recommend to schools that they use a blog? Or
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at a blog almost as an extension of your story. And so to have it be really focused on what you do best, it's almost like your blog should be putting a stake in the ground of, this is what I believe, this is how our school can help students that would thrive here. and here's the knowledge we have behind it. Blogging, I still think, and there's a lot of content out there on the web, but blogging is one of the best ways to kind of build that trust in your school's position, in your expertise. Like Cheryl was saying, before people even get to campus, you know, looking at your content and saying, here's what they believe in, here's their perspective, here's the expertise of their leaders and their faculty, and having that sense of, okay, this is a school that knows what it's doing before, well, visiting campus or Zooming with campus, I guess, whichever way it happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And both are relevant now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just got a comment in. I love this from Catherine. She says Sanford's website was definitely a big reason why we initially showed interest and have enrolled.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, Cheryl, you probably know Catherine, right?
I don't believe I do.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, and so but that's awesome though. That's exactly what a website should do. It should be able to draw a prospective parent in through the story that's being told, and a blog certainly can be one component. And it sounds scary, but I think it's a great opportunity for schools to demonstrate their expertise, you know, in education and dealing with parents and students and being able to tackle that. I did see a question come in from Rupali, and she's with a school that I'm actually working with in the Boston, actually west of Boston area. And she mentions that the website is very informative and engaging, but she's wondering, how do you identify your dream families? So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, you know, what are the categories, qualities that you determine your dream families? Any words of advice there?
Yeah, you know, there's something we said a lot when we were doing it is you look at the kids in your school and they're your pool, and something about a pool is if you stare at them long enough, you can see yourself. So really dig into the families that are at your school and the ones who are, you know, the most active in your community, and whose kids are, you know, the who are standouts in whatever variety, and just the family members that, you know, represent your school and all that's going right, and then just dig into the folks that are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole process definitely requires some research. You know, you want to look at the families that are there. You want to look at alumni. You can talk to them directly. There's a lot of different levels of research that you can do to help kind of build out your dream family audience persona. You know, what their challenges are, what they're looking for, how they make their decisions. What are some of the barriers that they had before enrolling? Like, what were they concerned in for your families that are already there and decided to enroll? You know, what other schools were they looking at? Really understanding the decision-making process of families who you want to attract, you know, look like how Alex was saying, how you figure out those families, and then diving deep into research that you can do or things that you have, looking at frequently asked questions that people submit through your website, looking at emails that parents send you, looking at old testimonials. All of those things can be used to kind of build a portrait of a dream family. And of course, there's variance between families. It's not all the same, but it at least gives you someone to kind of picture in your mind when you're writing a story and you want to be talking directly to that person instead of this like blank wall of internet. It makes your writing and your storytelling more compelling and more connected.
Yeah, and it's actually also known as brand personas.
Mm-hmm.
So that would just be another way to look at the terminology for it. But I like the concept of dream families.
Yeah,
that's who we're trying to target and enroll in our schools. Now, what about social media? How do you engage on social media with storytelling? What do you recommend, Emily, for schools for the social media channels that they could be on?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is when schools are like, okay, we need to have a Facebook strategy, we need to have a Snapchat strategy, we need to have all these things. I'd rather have schools say, all right, we need to have a storytelling strategy, and social media is going to be one of the ways that we tell our story. So again, having that story set and then figuring out what's the best way to relay this story on these different social media channels. So, for example, at the Quaker school, one of their things that came out of the storytelling process and that we use, I mean, it's been probably five years now later, is this idea of their hashtag is Shine Together. And, you know, Alex signs his letters that way. We use the Shine Together hashtag across all of his social media platforms. And we're always telling stories about how the Quaker school helps students shine together and how the community kind of builds itself up. So having that story in place lended itself to so many different opportunities for social media storytelling. And we do that, you know, just with sharing third-party content and writing news stories and sharing updates at the school. It all connects back to how the Quaker school helps its students shine. And Sanford does something very similar, like you saw at the end, their My Sanford Self, that came out of this kind of positioning of they have such a unique, creative community at their school. And so how can we build that up? And so it's sharing on social all the different, you know, stories and features of their creative and unique community, but connected back to be yourself, express yourself, challenge yourself, and how Sanford's able to do that. So looking at social media as a storytelling opportunity, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know, Cheryl and Alex, you want to comment more specifically on how that actually works in your school? Because you're the ones implementing the strategies that Emily's recommending.
I'm happy to take a stab at that. We have a social media strategy which is driven by the story, not the other way around. And we have a schedule with all of the different platforms we're on, which are Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Forgot about Twitter. And what we do is every day of the week is dedicated to a different component. So I think Monday is Be Yourself, Wednesday is Express Yourself, Friday is Challenge Yourself. And that schedule, there's obviously some evergreen content. And we use our HubSpot scheduling component for social media to get that content into the system. If we really tried every day to constantly populate all of those pages, we would never be able to get it done. So we use those pieces to help us keep ourselves organized, because it would be impossible to do it without some kind of tool. But we also know that this is the content we're looking for these particular days. And everything is done to either build upon our story or to support our story. We also use a lot of third-party story. So we look for stories and topics and messaging that supports who we are at Sanford. And we share those pieces via social and then connect all the dots back to experts say, this is important, here's how we do it. And ultimately, this is a good thing for you to listen to or take advantage of. So it kind of is an ongoing process, but it is very, I would say it's much more strategic than it used to be in terms of, okay, what are we going to put on our pages today? There's really a lot of thought behind it. And Emily was instrumental in helping us understand how we could make our social media program more strategic and supportive of the story.
Yeah, most schools don't have a strategy with social media. They're not thinking about storytelling first. So I love how you're both talking about that. Alex, do you want to share about your social media strategy?
Yes.
At your school?
Yes, well, a lot of the benefit we get out of the social is in going back to the blogs and the podcasts and the thought and the articles that I'm writing and all that thought leadership work. And, you know, that's first. And then really the social media is a broadcast mechanism. Well, not just broadcast, because we get a lot of engagement through that as well. But it's an engagement mechanism to push out those messages that are coming first and that are part of the system. So, I mean, one strategy we had that was super successful that Emily came up with is we did these Friday introductions where we introduced a member of our faculty. We get all these alums coming back and seeing their old teachers and families going in and telling stories about all the great things that those people did for their kids. And that ended up being wonderful for us. I think if a school leader is thinking of implementing social media if they're not doing it already, or they want to, focus on it. I think the advice I would certainly give is just pick one and start there. It's really easy. It could all be really big. And it's also interesting, there's no real way to know which one's going to take off. Had a lot of traction on LinkedIn, which is not a place I would have expected. But it just, our little school got thousands of followers at this point. And it's been great to engage with, but again, I never would have seen that coming.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, to explore, what you feel like is the best channel to reach your audience. And so LinkedIn certainly can be a relevant channel to reach a certain segment of the population. And so, but I think it's important that schools don't just go down the road of jumping into all the social media channels. Let's be strategic, take your time. I love the advice of maybe one channel at a time and being able to work on that. That's great advice that you all are sharing. What about video? Video is definitely a way to be able to tell stories about your school. How are you using video to be able to reach your audience?
Well, our head of school is very active in terms of not only being involved and engaged in any videos we're producing, he will also go out and make his own video. We got him a tripod that he can take with him. And particularly during the pandemic, we've seen a lot more video production. I started my career working in radio and TV. And so my thought process has always been high production, video production, like high value. We need it to look good and we need it to look a certain way. And what we're finding is that, with YouTube and social media videos, people are much more tolerant of something that's not a top-end production. It's really about the messaging and getting out there in a timely manner. So we use video quite a bit, some high-end video, but what I also call some quick and dirty videos. And one of the things that we did with our COVID-19 page and with our communications, again, at the time the pandemic started, there was a lot of, tell me how to get through this. Like, what information can you give me from a safety standpoint, and how to keep my kids entertained and those kinds of things, which we did put on the page, but our head of school also did a lot of video messaging, a lot of it on his own, and crafted these messages, because if you think about it, there was a lot of impact in terms of not being able to come to school, particularly for seniors. So he shared videos with messaging for our seniors to tell him how sad he was that they weren't going to be able to be on campus and do a lot of the senior experience things that normally occur. We're in the process now of, this one's a little bit of a higher end video, where we're talking about our reopening plan. But again, there is nothing that we do that's just information anymore. We can say, well, we're getting hand sanitizer stations and we're going to put up these signs and we're going to do all of these different things, but we never lose sight of the fact that we're going to still encourage our kids to learn without limits, which is a part of our brand story too. So the focus is always there in everything we do, including the videos that we produce.
Great. Wonderful. Alex, Emily, you want to share?
Yeah, COVID, it's a terrible thing, but we look at what benefits, what good has come of it, right? And to tell a story about video, right before COVID, we launched a strategic plan last year, and to push our strategic plan out, we generated this video, right? So we had to have it scripted. We hired Emily for that. She did an amazing job. We hired a videographer, and he brought in this whole film crew, and they came to the school like 3 times. And it's really this amazing video. It's fun, it's engaging, it's fast. You really know our strategic plan when it's done. This thing took about 4 months to produce and cost about $7,000, right? And then when COVID came, I had to communicate with all of my stakeholders, and I had an iPhone that I tilted up against a half-empty wine bottle, and those videos took me about 20 minutes and cost nothing. And yet we had just tremendous engagement from actually this same thing behind me, my same pantry door closed and my grandfather's old typewriter and all of this, the same background in these videos, and this horrible IKEA chair. And on these cell phone videos, and they've just turned out to be just an amazing way to engage with all of our stakeholders. Some of these things have thousands of views and shares. I'm like, well, and I even not ran into somebody, I was chatting with somebody online from another school. Like, oh, you're that head of school who tells moms how hard it is to be, home with their kids. I said, yeah, that's me. So just an amazing lesson on like how cheap and easy and powerful video can be. And I don't know that we're ever going to make a professional video again, although we're going to just push out tons of video content.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice, because sometimes
Yeah.
we do think about videos being this high-end production, but even like today's video, it's not high-end, and this doesn't cost me anything but the $39 a month subscription to StreamYard to be able to do this. But Emily, your advice on video?
Yeah, I think they both talked about it in different ways, but it's this authentic connection, and I think it's looking at video less of a project and more of a way to really connect. And so sometimes that's crafting something that concisely can tell a great story and might need a higher production value, but sometimes it's a empty wine bottle and an iPhone, and both of those can be really strong and strategic ways to connect with your dream families and tell your story. And I think it's just what authentically in the moment your families need, and using video to craft that connection. But I love video. Yeah,
video is great. It can be intimidating, to think about going on the air or to be able to record yourself, but work your way through that, and you'll find that it's a great opportunity to be in front of your audience. So just want to make sure that our audience out there has an opportunity to be able to ask any questions that are on your mind. And so feel free to jot those down, type those into the comment section under the live broadcast. But I'm interested in this question as we transition here toward the end of the show. Storytelling can be all-consuming. There's a lot that you can do there. But how do you manage your time and resources to actually implement these storytelling strategies in your schools?
Well, listening to Alex and me, it's obvious we call Emily. So.
That's right, exactly. Help,
I
need Emily.
But quite honestly, one of the things that, from a recommendation standpoint, I would offer, especially for schools that are composed of lean teams, there are times you really do need to bring in somebody who has the expertise and the time available to devote to all of that. The other piece I would suggest is making sure that you're working closely with other groups within the organization. With all of the marketing initiatives we have, we work closely with our admission office and our development office, but also, just as importantly, we have a tremendous faculty and staff that do a lot of other things well. So if we want to blog talking about physical fitness or concussion safety, or I think any particular topic, we have a resource we can go to. A lot of times those folks are busy. So what we have done is try to put in place resources to help them so that they're not finding themselves needing to write a blog totally on their own. And we find that works well. I think one of the best groups for us on our campus is our counseling team. Counselors have a lot of good information that they can share. And so we will reach out to them frequently. And then I guess the final thing is you need a plan. I think in terms of the scheduling strategies that we talked about, we have a blog schedule, we have a social media schedule, and I think all of those things give us the ability to organize ourselves in a way that we can be efficient and effective.
So important to have that schedule, to know what's ahead. And then you can always shift if you need to with that schedule based upon what's going on in your school. Alex, you want to share anything about how you deal with the time and resources?
Yeah, it's true. It is time consuming. Like if I'm writing blogs, if I'm recording podcasts, if I am writing letters, if I'm writing the column I had for Independent School Magazine, if I'm writing for journals, there's something else I'm not doing. What I would just say is it's storytelling is, if you prioritize it, you get a tremendous dividend back. I don't know how many other activities I can engage in where I can connect with my community and share the work of the school and bring folks into the community and promote the school and establish our thought leadership and have fun in the process that are as effective. So I think you just have to make it a priority.
So important. Emily, you want to comment on this topic here?
I mean, those were great answers. That was a great summation, I think. I think it's really looking at, to sum that all up, having a strategy in place, having the resources internally and knowing who you can rely on, having support so that you're not doing it alone, and having the collaboration and the understanding within your school that storytelling is a priority and is important. And it's not just playing on social media or writing a blog when we have time. It's really a critical component of promoting and connecting and establishing your school.
And it will impact your enrollment. As we titled this live show today, how story impacts admissions and marketing. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why we invest time and resources in this. And the reality is we have a story to tell at our schools. And so we need to be engaged in focusing in on that, making that a priority, and being able to share that story anytime that we can. So as we run out of time here, I'm interested in any final words of advice that all three of you want to share to our audience today, because you have lots of advice that you've shared throughout the last hour, and lots of nuggets of wisdom and experience. But if you were to sum it up, what would be the final advice that you'd want to share today?
I would say, start somewhere. Don't be afraid. The process is attainable and manageable. Your school does have a strong story to tell. Sometimes it's just uncovering it and organizing it. It's not necessarily tearing down what you're doing right now and starting from scratch. It's looking at how you can better elevate the great work that you're already doing. And so it shouldn't be something that is looked at as a negative process or a scary process. It's like a really fun opportunity to uncover your best school self.
Great advice. Cheryl or Alex?
I would follow up with the focus on partnerships, I think, is key. I know oftentimes when we talk about hiring an outside consultant or a writer, and this is not just in the school, but in any organization, sometimes the immediate response is, well, don't we really have people that can do that ourselves? And one of the things that I will say for us, at least in our own experience, is once we had the story, it made everything that we needed to create subsequently ourselves so much easier. It was suddenly like, we've got a roadmap and we know what direction to go. So that partnership you have with outside experts, along with the internal partnerships that you can create, that I just talked about a little bit ago, I think make storytelling possible, even in the leanest of schools.
Great. And last but not least, Alex.
I'll certainly, echo what everybody else said, and I'll just, add in, and this isn't to scare anyone away, but consistency is really important. And not only in the consistency of the story, but whatever channel you do choose and whatever content you're putting out there for folks, it can be really tough for audiences if it becomes inconsistent. So just, again, pick one, start simple, as they were saying, know your story, but then whatever channel that is, and whatever frequency, even if it's monthly, just make sure at that monthly interval that's there and reliably in place for your audience, because they'll come to expect it.
Very good. And we did have one question that came in, and I wanted to pose this question to you, Emily. What's the difference between sharing information and telling stories?
That's a good question. When that first popped up, my first thought was, sharing information is the car sticker on the for sale sign car that has all the different details of what the car has in it, or the ingredient list on like a meal. But that's not what excites people, the car itself and the image of it. And on a car commercial, they don't put that sticker up. They build a story around it. And so that's a good way to think of it. You don't pick your the place you're going for dinner just on what ingredients are in one of their meals. You pick it for the overall experience. And so I would look at it that way.
Great, wonderful response. So our time's up. Thank you so much, Emily,
Thank
Cheryl,
you.
and Alex, for being a part of my live show today. We've had a great audience and look forward to engaging with you all online again. So thanks, Emily, again, and Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, signing off. Have a great school year.
Bye.